why don't we talk about Rosenbaum's criminal record?
Yes.
So we got to be very careful in how we describe this.
Yeah.
Joseph Rosenbaum, I will say this right away. I'm sad he lost his life. A lot of people wouldn't say that. I don't agree with the death penalty, but he should have stayed locked up. If he stayed locked up for the atrocities he committed against children, none of this would have happened. And I wish he was still alive for more than just his own sake, but Kyle Rittenhouse wouldn't be put in this position. He wouldn't have to go out and defend his community from violent rioters. He wouldn't have to worry about injuries among those violent rioters that he was still trying to help. But I don't believe the death penalty. I don't. I think it's wrong. I think you can't snuff out a life like that. And it's very difficult because I don't know how we deal with people like Rosenbaum. But let me stress, Joseph Rosenbaum is an individual who committed atrocities. And I mean that when I say atrocity, because I can't get into specific details. The details of what Rosenbaum did to children are so graphic and vile that YouTube might actually give me a strike simply for saying it.
Yep.
They will suppress, demonetize, and potentially remove because the description of what Rosenbaum was convicted of is an atrocity against a child, an adult action forced on children, more than one.
Like 9, I believe, right?
Tim, he,
I don't
9 to
know
11
the
years
exact
of
number.
age.
Tim, he wanted to get
they were
shot.
9 years old.
Multiple people.
He wanted to get shot. He did.
he was
He was
telling the guy
pushing
to
every
shoot him.
single button.
He was
that
saying
night.
shoot him. Yeah, he was
that
saying shoot him.
night, Joseph Rosenbaum was pushing every single button
Yep.
to get into some kind of violent confrontation. He was requesting to be shot. Joseph Rosenbaum, right now, shout out to Julio Rojas. If you're watching, Julio, he reported today he's in Kenosha. There are literally protesters outside with signs with Joseph Rosenbaum dressed as Superman, as if he's some kind of fallen hero. That is just 100% false. Aside from the pedophilic, practices he had in his life, that night he was violent. There's nothing heroic about Joseph Rosenbaum in any way, shape, or form.
I want to be very, very careful.
Let people call me biased, okay? I am biased. I have a problem with pedophiles.
I want to be very, very careful. But I think it's important to point out what Ian just said. He was yelling, "Shoot me," over and over again.
Yes.
Yep.
This is why I'm bringing up this charge, because you better believe it. When I tweet about this stuff, the left gets really, really mad, but this matters. Now, the judge said he doesn't want the jury to know that Rosenbaum committed atrocities against several children. He was targeting them. He was going after them. He went to prison for it, because the jury might say, wow, we don't care if it was self-defense or not at that point. I think the judge made the right call, and the jury should not have heard that, but I counter. It was, I believe, De Bruin was his name?
Yeah, De
The
Bruin.
photographer?
Yeah.
Said, Joseph Rosenbaum yelled, "I don't care if I go back to jail."
Yeah, he did.
And when that happened, the state objected, like, whoa, the jury can't know that. No, they can. And the defense said, it's what he yelled at the moment. He's not stating the past of this individual. But here's what I believe. First, I will say it again. I'm really, really sad that this guy lost his life. I'm really sad that he was distraught, distressed, and messed up to such an insane degree. I'm sad that a human being could become so destructive and be so evil and wrong. And this person, they say, was in a mental hospital or a jail, and he should have stayed there.
Yeah.
But
I'm sad for the little kids he raped.
But listen, and you're right. Rosenbaum shows up on the day he gets out of jail. He's not part of any movement. He's not there in support of any message. That's my opinion. Because he hasn't been part of a movement. He's been in prison for what he did to these children. And he comes out and says, "Shoot me." And he comes out and says, "I don't care if I go back to jail." Those words to me sound like someone who is depressed, distraught,
Suicidal.
hates themselves, potentially suicidal, and for this lashes out with violent tendencies and projects that onto other people, creating the risk against people like Kyle Rittenhouse.
Well,
this is a very, very touchy subject. I want to add.
Yeah, we got to be careful with our words here, but more importantly, people with his charges, and he was charged on 11 incidences with 5 kids, all boys aged 9 to 11. That's the context here. I'm not going to get into the specifics here, but people who have his rap sheet do not have a good time in jail. They are targets. They are obviously punished by other prisoners, and prisoners, of course, take these individuals and they do other unspeakable things to them as their own form of justice to these types of specific criminals. So for him to say that he wants to be back in a place where he's in jail, where he has not just the prison guards against him, not just the prison staff, but the prisoners against him, who are known for committing atrocities against these specific types of people shows you someone that is obviously not in a right state of mind, obviously was not doing very well, and obviously something that is a very horrible situation overall.
I think that was relevant to this case because it shows you that perhaps what motivated him was mental illness.
Yes.
And I don't mean that to disparage people who have mental illnesses. I'm saying this man was unwell to a very extreme degree. I think if the jury understood that, it would be a very, very different picture. A picture of a protester who was angry and destructive, or a mentally ill man who had committed very serious crimes, was lashing out and threatening other people. I believe it's important to stress. I know Tucker Carlson said it very bluntly, but I'll say it very, much more delicately. Rosenbaum had committed violent atrocities against children. He has a tendency towards violence against other people, not just in this moment. Telling the jury this man has a history of violence against others is extremely important to let them know it was not a one-off moment where a protester got mad at somebody. They're arguing provocation. That's what the state said, that Rittenhouse provoked Rosenbaum by threatening Zeminski, and Rosenbaum acted in defense of others. They actually argued that.
Wow.
If the jury had known, no, Rosenbaum has been violent for decades against minors, against children, against other people, and this is a part of a pattern of abuse he's committed in his life. They might say a mentally ill man, and I'm not trying to disparage the mentally ill. I mean, this is very important. Someone who needs to be locked up for their own safety and the safety of others was just released, attacked somebody, and you know what? Why would that surprise the state who released him? They know he's violent. They know he's dangerous. And the day he gets out, he attacks another person. I think the jury should have known that.
Absolutely.
I think that the jury should have been told he's committed violent felonies against children. So when you take into consideration why he attacked Kyle Rittenhouse, understand this was not somebody who's never done it before. It's someone who has a pattern of abuse. But they didn't let it. They didn't allow it.
So sorry. I don't understand why they can't tell you that he has that history of abuse. Can you explain that for me?
The concern is what he did in the past. He paid his debt to society. He went to prison. He got released. It shouldn't be a factor in whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself from him.
Okay.
But I would argue, first of all, I would say that's a fair point. And I think the judge, for the most part, was right in that regard. The judge is trying to make sure, whether it's for conviction or for acquittal, the jury just hears what happened that night. And that's why he kicked out a lot of the evidence from later on, because it was prejudicial. And so it's a fair point. But if Freddy Krueger goes in and with his knife hands slashes up a teenager and then is on trial, and they say, don't let anyone know that he has a history of attacking children.
In their dreams.
Yeah.
That's what
Which is also real life.
But my point is, isn't it fair to be like, if Freddy Krueger attacks a teenage girl and then she casts a spell and then he turns into a rat and then explodes? I'm being very, very fanciful. Like if he's defeated in the dreams,
right,
and they're like, well, they killed Freddy Krueger. It's like, can the court please hear about the teenagers whose dreams he's invaded in the past? Because he does this to everyone.
Right.
It's not one off. It's not one moment. Rosenbaum has a violent, abusive history.
Do we know?
I was sorry. Let me go ahead.
Just really quick before I turn it to you, do we know why he was released? Was it an effort by some politicians who wanted to get people out of prison? Because there was a big effort underway during that summer where a lot of hardened criminals were released on the streets in the name of prison reform. So it would be interesting to know. I don't know those details. I don't know if anyone does.
Or the lockdowns. I don't know what was happening.
Or
too.
COVID.
COVID.
But Lydia had something.
And how long had he been in jail or in prison before that day?
Yeah,
Do you guys,
curious
any of you guys
too.
know?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Tim's
Like
looking
3
it up
months
right now, but I was going to say, I'm really glad that the judge said that it needed to be allowed, that he yelled out, "I'm not afraid to go back to prison," because that really puts a spotlight on him having been in prison and literally acting like he has nothing to lose, which I think really lends to Tim's point that he might have definitely been mentally unwell.
Just observing the behavior from that night, I could say without a shadow of a doubt, and I have the footage to back it up as well, not just an eyewitness, it's not my opinion, Joseph Rosenbaum was a threat to those around him, to the community, to himself, to everybody, even to the police that night.
Right.
Okay, and you could take a look at the footage, and everything that I'm saying is 100% true because he was a threat to every single one of those people. And he, to me, I think it's just obvious when you are literally just so open to say shoot me, N-word, literally trying to get into a physical confrontation with somebody with a gun, the people at the gas station. I think people could just decide for themselves.
He chased someone armed with a rifle.
This
And-
this comes out of testimony, right? When he chased him and grabbed his gun.
No.
Was that on video?
There not only are there multiple angles of him doing it.
Oh, yeah.
The medical examiner said there was blast burns on his hand because his hand was on the gun, and it was on Rekida's stream. I think someone mentioned that the moment you have your hand on someone else's gun, it's now dual possession.
Right.
So that means, I don't know if that's true in Wisconsin. Maybe it's not, because I think maybe the defense would have argued it. Maybe they missed this one. Rosenbaum was in possession of a rifle.
He
when he grabbed the
also
gun.
concealed his identity. So if you guys look at my footage and you see when Rosenbaum is in the ultimate gas station and he's getting crazy with the people with the rifles saying, shoot me N-word, he's throwing his body on people. He's just getting crazy. But then he retreats to the street. And when he retreats to the street, that's when he conceals his identity with his shirt. He takes his shirt off and then he conceals his identity. And then this is the footage that I submitted that they played in the middle of the trial that nobody's ever seen before, is once he retreated to the street, concealed his identity, he's committing arson again. He's lighting another trash can on fire. And it's 2 minutes. I timed it. 2 minutes and 5 seconds between he's committing arson and charging Kyle Rittenhouse from behind.
It was really amazing how we've seen leftist activists lie, claiming that Kyle Rittenhouse was chasing Rosenbaum, how the prosecution tried claiming that he aimed his weapon at him, which is absurd. And then when Kyle Rittenhouse was telling his story in his first bit of testimony, and they get to that point where he's surrounded, Zeminski armed, Rosenbaum running at him, and he just breaks down, hyperventilating. And they all said, he's not crying, all these angry anti-Rittenhouse, lefty type people. And when you look at the video, which is low resolution and grainy, you can't really see anything on his face. You can see some reflection. When you look at the high-res photographs from photographers, you can see the tears coming down his face. When I saw that, look, man, either Kyle Rittenhouse deserves an Oscar for that performance, or the reality was the kids. It was revealed by the defense he's in therapy for what he went through.
That was the moment that he realized he was trapped. I listened to that. He said that Zeminski's in front of him, and then to his right, he looks and he sees Rosenbaum running at him. He looks to his left, and there's 3 people, and then he stops and he breaks down. He's reliving that moment when he realized, I can't get away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to escape tonight. There was people blocking him everywhere he looked. So he ran towards an opening, and that's where the guy chased him.
I would pose this question, and it's speculation, pure speculation. How would have this story ended if Kyle didn't fire? Same thing leading up. Everything's the same. Rosenbaum's violent behavior the whole night. Everything's the same leading up to that moment, but Kyle didn't fire. What would have happened? I don't know.
Well, I'll give you my honest opinion, which is pure speculation and random thought.
Yeah.
I don't think Rosenbaum would have taken that weapon and used it on other people. The defense, Kyle Rittenhouse testified that. And I believe it's reasonable to assume that because he was destructive, he was burning things down. But it's hard for me because there's that bias in all of us. It can't happen here, that idea. So when I was reading the story about ADA Binger pointing a rifle at the jury, I'm digging up a story after story trying to fact check this because I'm like, there's no way the prosecutor would aim a rifle, finger on the trigger at the jury. And the reporting says he did. And so I'm like, this is why I use NewsGuard. And people laugh because Microsoft funded. And I'm like, because it's not about what I want to believe. It's about what the news reported happened. And maybe they're wrong and maybe they'll correct and I'll issue a correction, but that's what happened. When it comes to what happened with the defense, they said, Kyle said he feared that if he got that weapon, he would use it on Kyle and he would use it on others. I believe there's a strong, strong likelihood Rosenbaum would have used that rifle on Kyle Rittenhouse. Yes. I don't believe he would have started using it on others. I believe that's where things get a little exaggerated. However, consider so what I mean to say is, I don't think that Rosenbaum was in this frame of mind where he would take a rifle and just randomly gun people down. That's what they say about Rittenhouse, like he was just a mass shooter, he was an active shooter, he was going to do this. However, what would have happened if Rosenbaum got the gun and shot Kyle? People would have screamed, yo, he just shot that dude. Richie would have run up and rendered aid to Kyle Rittenhouse. People would have started screaming at Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum would have started running. Someone would have run up and hit him with a skateboard. Rosenbaum would start firing on people. So in that regard, the mob would have attacked him, not knowing who he was or caring who he was, and then he would have used that rifle on people.
It's definitely the problem of letting go of your rifle in a situation like that. You can't do it because of that, because of the possibility that the guy's going to go hostile with the weapon. But I do know that Zemisky, or according to Kyle's testimony, told Rosenbaum, catch him and kill him. I don't know if those are exact words. It was grab him, catch him, and kill him.
He said, get him. He said, cranium that boy.
Cranium that
Wow.
guy. People were screaming all sorts of stuff about killing Kyle. So in his mind, best case scenario, if he lets go of the rifle, he's going to get shot and killed.
You know that night, man. In the middle of that riot, the mob mentality for 2 days straight was already at a 100. They're burning down buildings. It's at a 100. They're going. But after Kyle shot Rosenbaum, it went from like 100 to 1,000. They just were, where is he? They even punched Richie. Right? Like when Richie was carrying Rosenbaum to take him to the car where they were going to transport him because they thought it was Richie that shot him. They were just, it went from 100 to 1,000. That's the only way I could describe it. It was the mob mentality on steroids. They were looking for him. Where is he? They were seeking to identify him. I can only assume as to why. I don't think they wanted to have a conversation with him.
And let's not forget, there were many other incidences across this country where right-wingers were shot by leftist activists. Some were assassinated. Some were shot during altercations. But these incidences happened with the same exact almost situation, but different political ideologies at different ends of them. So to have one of these highlighted and the other ones ignored literally brings up the larger question of what's really going on here with the spin, the play, the attention that all of this getting. I think it's deliberate, and I think there's a big agenda behind all of this.
They don't want us to have guns, man.
I know.
The most annoying thing to me is when I see these memes from establishment Democrat types saying like no one's trying to ban your guns, and I'm like, first of all, in West Virginia, for the most part, there's a lot of guns that are not banned. I'm allowed to have, but you can't bring them to Virginia. You can't bring them to Maryland. You can't bring them to New Jersey. It's scary in New Jersey. I went to a gun store, and they had a certain weapon as an other firearm, and I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to get into too much details about the weapons I own. And when I was buying it, I was like, oh, I really want to buy that. It's a great weapon. And the guy said, you're going to need this certificate proving it's legal. And I was like, what? Why? He's like, carry it with you at all times if you ever have this in your possession. And I was like, what? Why? Because based on how it looks, it's illegal. It is banned in New Jersey. And I'm like, it's just it's a 9mm rifle, basically. That's what it was. Yeah. And I was like, what? That's banned? Well, no, but a cop wouldn't understand that, and he'd probably arrest you for it. And I was like, dude, this is crazy.
What you said, what did you say earlier? It's not so much leftists that don't like guns. What did you say, like neo-socialists?
Establishment, neoliberal types.
Liberals,
no, the neo-socialist youth love guns.
Okay.
Until they gain power.
But I want to encourage them because they seem so afraid of firearms and so afraid of guns, whether it's a handgun or a rifle, shotgun, whatever, right? They're so afraid. I want to encourage you guys that are listening, go to a gun range. You will see it is probably one of those safest places in your community for two reasons. If anything goes down at a gun range, you're going to be safe. But number two, the practices at a gun range are, at least all the ones I've ever been to, are super safe. People are constantly checking. Everyone's watching each other's backs. Everyone is fully aware of what's happening with each other. Is this loaded? Is that it? And I think a lot of people haven't experienced that. So they think it's just like, so it's like the Bat Cave and there's all these guns come out and everyone's irresponsible and just want to kill people. But I would encourage people to check that out for themselves.
But I understand why they feel that way when you watch the prosecutor in a case involving possession of a gun pointing the rifle at the jury with his finger on the trigger.
The state prosecutor would be kicked out of a gun range if he did that.
Yes.
He would be not allowed.
He would be banned for life.
Banned.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, this is just
Banned.
absolutely insane, incredulous behavior that deserves to be called out. I'm surprised no one's really talking about this
Dude,
as much
he had his
as they
little
should.
finger on the trigger.
His
Get
little
it?
finger.
Little. I want to shout out chat for saying little binger, by the
I
way.
like that.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.